Hey guys, this is Rob from Georgia here with you, and this is week 5 of what we refer to as a schizophrenic synopsis here. Me and James will take some time, we'll take a pair of films, and then we'll have some unique sort of angle to look at, and then we'll go ahead, and this week is no different. He will emphasize, we'll be looking at 2 films here, Extra from 1982 and Almost Human from 2013. And both are alien abductions sort of gone bad, right? So, he's going to look at Extra, I'm going to look at Almost Human. But then we're really sort of looking at these films and trying to ascertain, amongst ourselves or individually, which one's better? Is it the throwback from 13 that looks back and does just an absolutely insane job of recapturing a lot of that bygone feel, VHS feel and whatnot, or the original from which a lot of these ideas spring from, Extra from 1982, a very bold film for its day in terms of some of the subject matter. And so, which is better? And I don't know if, in the end, we'll see where my thoughts are by the end of this review. But, man, this is week 5. And we so appreciate so much everyone who is, kind of joined in with this thing with us and given us an opportunity to do something a little different. I kind of sort of liken it to, perhaps a form of podcasting via YouTube to effect, right? And but thanks, man, so much for the views. Thank you for just watching and just spending the time with us. And hopefully, as we progressively move further on, the films we pick, the angles we decide on will become, I hope, more interesting. But here's the IFC release of Almost Human, a Joe Begos film. If that's how you say his name correctly. And Davenport, of course, the director of the '82 film. Extra, which is my German release of that, and what an awesome release. I think it's like a 5-disc release of that thing from Platinum Cult Edition, which includes the soundtrack. But anyways, it's a great release. So really, both films deal with abduction, someone being taken from, and then sometime later brought back, right? And so with Almost Human, the character, of course, you got just a small, this is a lower budgeted film. It's shot digitally intermediate, which is amazing to me because when I realized that it was shot digitally, it does not really, you remember the review we did of, when I did Evil Dead remake, I harped at large that, one of the downfalls of that film, I thought, was the fact that it was shot digitally. It was too polished. It looked too clean. It was just too glossy. But here's a film that you watch and you want, and man, I mean, it harkens back to the VHS days. It's got a bit of grittiness to it, but yet it's shot digitally intermediate. So I'm not sure what the word intermediate exactly means to effect, but the film does not look near as glossy or polished as that Evil Dead remake film did. And so, I was really shocked. Now, of course, back in the day, Extra was 35 millimeter, right? And there is a bit of grittiness, of course, that comes natural to that film in its age. But the transfer, of course, that Platinum Cult did is pretty good. But anyways, so you get Seth, Mark, Jen. Mark and Jen are a couple. Seth is sort of that third wheel friend, and then it just seems like there's another character, Becky. But anyway, those 3 really are your 3 most important characters, I think, in the entire movie. And what you really have is, in the opening scenes, basically you have Mark and Jed are at home, and there's some things that are happening, and Mark will ultimately find himself where he's abducted, quite violently right outside the house, in total eye view of Seth, his best friend. And so that will, once it happens, of course, there are things that are laid on Seth, but ultimately they can't prove he did anything. But he lives the next couple years, or I can't remember the time length here. It's pretty harsh on him. He doesn't know what's happened to his best friend. He's had some blame thrown on him, and so he's a bit rough. Jen has gone on, and in fact, she's got another person in her life that she's living with. But okay, here we go, man. So it's alien abduction. What else do you need to know, right? Mark comes back. And when he comes back, this is what makes this movie so much freaking fun. Man, it is like Extra on steroids or something, on heroin or something. Mark comes back, man, and it is like the pathway, you know, from where he begins, being dropped or left in the middle of the woods, and some hunters come across him, to the point where he finally reaches Jen. Dude, it is like, there are some scenes in here where, man, he is just, I mean, ruthless to a core. He is just killing anyone and everyone that gets into his pathway. And some of those scenes are just so much fun to watch in a sort of devilish way, I guess, or devious, I don't know. It just, but it's just, man, it almost kind of like, you know, Zombies Age 2 in a very weird sort of offset way. But there's just some scenes that are very, very, very straight to the gut point, right? And ultimately, you know, his point, you know, much like Extra, is reclaiming his family and rebuilding it, but in a different way. And so, you know, and so I was thinking, you know, man, I almost think, because it had been such a while since since I'd seen Extra, in my mind, I'm thinking, you know, Almost Human it may just be the better film, being a throwback, recapturing the greatness of that time period. But had gone back to revisit Extra last night, I was confronted with a dilemma. I'm sort of working my way. I'm like, this is a really good movie. I mean, this is a really good movie. It's much more drawn out. It's more lengthened than Almost Human. Just like, it's like gut punch right there. Extra takes its time. And there are some punches along the way, but it takes us time to build some things up. Where Almost Human, you know, it may be the more enjoyable, more entertaining of the two. If you just want to throw something on, right, and just be freaking entertained. Extra, man, you got to be involved. You got to really be there for the ride, for the payoff at the end. And there are some great special effects, practical effects, of course, along the way to enjoy. And then there's some other subtleties going on under the surface. Maybe perhaps the film in of itself is much more complex than, say, Almost Human. That's working, you know, in a more, I hate using the word shallow. There are things being worked out here in this film, but maybe not near to the degree as Extra, is what I'm trying to say. So, I mean, looking at 13 as a throwback, Almost Human, man, I would love to have this film in VHS format, because I think that's where it belongs. They did such an incredible job of just capturing this vibe and feel that you would have come across at times, the better times back in the day when you're watching films like this. It captured the best moments, I think, of that, and sort of, I don't want to say it's a highlight reel of sorts, but I mean, it's just, it offers us the best of, I think. Where Extra, it was what it was at the moment, and it's much more drawn out. So, I mean, if the point in this video is to somehow lay out to you my argument, I think Almost Human is a better film. Joe Begos' film is a much better film than Extra. I'm having a huge difficulty doing just that. I think on so many other levels, Extra is worked out to much better degree than Almost Human. But I would say, for me, Almost Human is maybe the more entertaining one, more fun, the one that packs quite a few punches in almost blitzkrieg fashion, and it does, you know, it does sort of lead us to look back at some of the more finer moments of 80s gore-festing film watching. I mean, you know, so I think that's pretty much all I'm gonna say to this. So I guess for my part, I'm going to leave it at this. I think Almost Human ought to be celebrated and relished, you know, as a incredibly well done throwback to, in my mind, at times a much better period. But Extra, man, that deserves some serious rewatch. It is a much longer, slower paced film, but there is, and I know the director has said before that, you know, the main thing is he wanted to shock people, but sadly, to disappoint him, I think there's a lot of other things going on in that film other than just that desire. It's interesting, family structure, unit, I mean, just so many interesting things. But yeah, so IFC, Almost Human, if you've never seen it, man, from 2013, Joe Begos. It is a freaking incredibly awesome throwback to the old days. And so here on Schizophrenia, a synopsis, I would say watch both, but I think expect Almost Human to be the more entertaining of the two. Yeah, I'm going to leave it at that, man. This is Rob from Georgia. Thank you so much for tuning in and for checking us out. And yeah, and as always, I always end off my videos with Go Bills.